The cargo ship Mugungwa's Promise moved through the darkness of space like a tired old worker heading home. Captain Daewon sat in his chair watching the stars pass by on the main screen. He was 53 years old with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from 20 years of hauling supplies across the galaxy. This was supposed to be a simple run. Pick up medical supplies from Station 12, deliver them to Colony 7, get paid and go home. Simple jobs were good jobs. Hana sat at the navigation console, her young face lit by blue screens. She was only 26, but already one of the best navigators in the outer systems. Her fingers moved across the controls like a musician playing an instrument. Beside her, Taemin cleaned his rifle for the third time that day. He was the ship's security officer, a former soldier who never quite left the military behind. In the engine room below, Jiwoo hummed while checking the reactor levels. She loved the engines more than she loved most people. Everything changed when Hana's console started beeping. "Captain, I'm picking up something weird," she said, frowning at her screens. "It's not a normal signal." Daewon leaned forward. "Define weird. It's mathematical patterns. Repeating sequences. Prime numbers, I think." She adjusted her headset. "Someone is trying to talk, but not in any language I know." Taemin stopped cleaning his rifle. "Could be a trap. Pirates use strange signals to lure ships. Or it could be someone who needs help," Jiwoo said over the intercom. She had been listening from the engine room like always. Daewon stood and walked to Hana's station. The signal was strong and getting stronger. "Can you decode it?" Hana's fingers flew over the keyboard. "Give me a minute." The computer is translating the math into images. The main screen flickered. Then it showed something that made everyone go quiet. The image was blurry but clear enough. Small creatures, maybe 4 feet tall, with bodies that looked like they were made of crystal or glass. They had large eyes and delicate limbs. Behind them, larger creatures in dark armor were grabbing them, throwing them into cages. The small creatures were screaming silently. Some were children. "Oh no," Hana whispered. More images came through. Burning buildings. Bodies on the ground. Ships in the sky dropping bombs. It was an invasion. It was genocide. And someone had sent out a desperate call for help. "Where is this coming from?" Daewon asked quietly. "Vela Prime. It's 2 days away at full speed." Hana looked up at him. "Captain, they're being killed." Taemin stood up. "This isn't our fight. We're a cargo ship with 1 rifle and a bad attitude. We can't take on an invasion force." "He's right," Jiwoo said, but her voice was sad. "We should report this to Earth and let the military handle it." Daewon stared at the screen. The small creatures looked so helpless, so afraid. One of them was holding what looked like a child, shielding it with its body. He had seen a lot in 20 years. He had seen pirates, smugglers, and corporate thugs. But he had never seen something like this. This was pure evil. How long would it take for Earth to send help? He asked. Hana checked her computer. A distress call would take 4 days to reach Earth. Then they'd need to organize a fleet. Maybe 2 weeks total. "These people don't have 2 weeks," Daewon said. "Hana, set course for Vela Prime, maximum speed." "Captain," Taemin started. "I know," Daewon interrupted. "I know we're just a cargo ship. I know we're probably going to die. But I didn't spend 20 years in space learning to ignore people who need help." He looked at each of them. "Anyone who wants to leave can take the escape pod. No judgment." "But I'm going." Nobody moved toward the escape pods. Taemin sighed and picked up his rifle. "Well, I always wanted to die doing something stupid." "I'll get the engines ready," Jiwoo said. "If we're flying into hell, we're flying fast." Hana smiled despite the fear in her eyes. "Course set, Captain." As the ship turned and accelerated, Hana kept working on the signal. "Captain, there's more information coming through. I think I can figure out who these people are and who's attacking them." Over the next hour, she pieced together the story. The small crystalline creatures were called Velans. They were a peaceful species who had never developed weapons. They lived on one planet and had barely started exploring space. The attackers were called Kraviks. They were a large, powerful species with an empire that spanned dozens of systems. They were slavers and thieves. "Why are they attacking?" Daewon asked. Hana pulled up more images. "The Velans grow these crystals on their bodies, see?" She pointed to the crystalline structures on the aliens' backs. "According to this data, those crystals are worth a fortune. The Kraviks are harvesting them. They're farming the Velans like animals." The bridge went silent. That was worse than murder. That was turning living, thinking beings into crops. "There's something else," Hana said slowly. The Velans weren't calling us. They were calling someone else. A species called Threxians. They're supposed to be peacekeepers in this part of space. But the signal got messed up somehow and reached us instead. So they don't even know we're coming, Taman said. No. And there's one more thing. Hana pulled up a galactic database. I looked up Earth in their records. We're listed as a Class 12 quarantine death world. What does that mean? Chiwu asked. Hana read from the screen. It means Earth is considered one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. The gravity is too high. The atmosphere is too reactive. The weather is too violent. The plants are poisonous. The animals are predators. And somehow intelligent life evolved there anyway. Most species think humans shouldn't exist. Day One laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. They think Earth is dangerous? They should see what we do to each other. That's in here too, Hana said quietly. It says humans have been at war for their entire recorded history. It says we're survivors of extinction events, ice ages, plagues, and nuclear weapons. It says we're classified as persistence predators. Whatever that means. It means we don't give up, Taman said, checking his rifle's ammunition. It means when we start hunting, we don't stop until the prey falls down. The ship rushed through space toward Vela Prime. Daewon sat back in his chair and thought about what they were doing. 4 people on a cargo ship going to fight an empire. It was insane. It was suicide. But those images kept playing in his mind. The Velan holding its child. The fear in their large eyes. Hana, send a message back to Earth, he said. Tell them what we found. Give them our coordinates. Tell them to bring friends. Yes, Captain. 2 days later, the Mugunghwa's promise dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Vela Prime. What they saw made their blood run cold. The planet was beautiful, with blue oceans and crystal cities that sparkled in the sunlight. But above it, Kravik warships circled like vultures, and on the surface, they could see fires burning. The Mugunghwa's promise hid behind one of Vela Prime's 3 moons while the crew watched the horror below. Through their sensors, they could see Kravik patrols moving through the cities, herding Velans into transport ships. The crystalline cities that had looked so beautiful from far away were now half destroyed, their towers broken like shattered glass. I count 12 warships in orbit, Taman said, studying the tactical display. Each one is 10 times our size. We can't fight them. We're not here to fight the whole fleet, Daewon replied. We're here to help whoever we can. Hana, can you locate the source of that distress signal? Hana nodded, working her console. Got it. There's a cluster of underground caverns on the southern continent. The signal is coming from there. Looks like some Velans escaped and are hiding. Can we land nearby without being detected? Maybe. If we come in low and fast, use the mountains for cover. But Captain, if they spot us, we're dead. Then we better not get spotted. Daewon stood up. Jiwoo, I need the engines ready to run at full power the second we touch down. Taman, gear up. You and I are going down there. I'm coming too, Hana said. No, I need you here to... Captain, they don't speak our language. I have the translation program. You need me. Her voice was firm. She was scared but determined. Daewon looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Fine. Jiwoo, you have the ship. If things go wrong, you get out of here. Understand? I understand, Jiwoo said from the engine room. But I won't leave you. That's an order. Then it's an order I'll ignore, Captain. Daewon smiled despite everything. His crew was crazy. He was lucky to have them. The ship dropped through the atmosphere like a falling stone, burning through clouds and skimming over mountain peaks. Kravik sensors swept the area, but the Mugunghwa's promise was small and fast. They landed in a rocky valley 3 miles from the cavern entrance. The loading ramp dropped, and Daewon, Hana, and Taman stepped onto alien soil for the first time. Vela Prime was beautiful. The air was thin but breathable. The sky was purple and 2 suns hung low on the horizon. Strange plants with crystal leaves grew between the rocks. It would have been peaceful if not for the smoke rising from the cities in the distance. Move fast, stay low, Taman said, taking point with his rifle ready. They ran across the rocky ground toward the caves. The cavern entrance was hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, the walls glowed with a soft blue light that came from the rocks themselves. They moved deeper, following Hana's scanner. Then they heard voices, not human voices. Something musical and high-pitched like wind chimes. They rounded a corner and froze. Dozens of Velans stared back at them. Up close, the Velans were even more delicate than they had looked in the images. They stood about 4 feet tall with thin bodies covered in crystalline plates that reflected light in rainbow colors. Their faces were almost human-like, but with larger eyes that had no whites, just swirling colors. Their hands had 3 fingers each tipped with sharp crystal points. One Velen stepped forward. It was larger than the others, with deeper blue crystals and wearing what looked like simple robes. When it spoke, the translation device in Hana's hand beeped and converted the musical sounds into words. "Who are you? What species?" Hana held up the device. "We're humans. From Earth. We received your distress signal." The Velens made sounds that the translator read as confusion, but we called for the Threxians. "Not humans. We do not know humans. The signal reached us by mistake," Daewon said, "but we came anyway. We want to help." The large Velen's eyes swirled with different colors. "You came? From another world? To help strangers?" The concept seemed to confuse it. "Why?" "Because you needed help," Daewon said simply. The Velen studied them for a long moment. "I am Elder Nyx. I lead what remains of my people here. The Kraviks came 6 days ago. They took our crystals. They killed those who resisted. They caged our children. We sent a call for help, but no one came. Until now. How many of you are here?" Taemin asked, his eyes scanning the cavern. 300. There were millions before. The number hit them like a punch. Millions reduced to hundreds in 6 days. Hana felt tears on her cheeks. Elder Nyx noticed and tilted her head. "You leak water from your eyes. Are you damaged?" "We cry when we're sad," Hana explained. "It's how humans show emotion." "You are sad for us? But you do not know us, and we don't need to know you to care," Hana said. Elder Nyx's crystals glowed brighter. Then she accessed a data device and went very still. After a moment, she looked back at them with what might have been fear. "I have accessed the galactic records. Earth is listed as a Class 12 death world. You evolved on a planet of death and violence. You are predators." "Yes," Daewon said, "but we're not here to hurt you. We're here to hurt the ones hurting you." Before Elder Nyx could respond, an alarm shrieked through the cavern. A young Velen ran in, speaking rapidly. The translator picked up the words, "A Kravik patrol." They found the entrance. Taemin was already moving toward the cavern entrance. "How many?" 6 warriors, the young Velen said. "Captain, get everyone deeper into the caves," Taemin ordered. "I'll handle this." "You can't fight 6 of them alone," Daewon said. Taemin smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Watch me." He ran toward the entrance while Daewon and Hana started moving the Velens deeper into the cave system. The Velens moved slowly, confused and frightened. They weren't built for running or fighting. They were built for peaceful lives that had been torn away from them. At the cavern entrance, Taemin took position behind a rock formation. Through his rifle's scope, he saw the Kravik patrol approaching. They were massive creatures, 8 feet tall with thick exoskeletons that looked like black armor. They had 4 arms, each one carrying a weapon. Their heads were helmet-like with glowing red eyes. They moved into the cavern, their heavy footsteps echoing. They were talking in their language, probably joking about finding more Velens to capture. They thought this would be easy. Taemin let them get 10 feet inside. Then he opened fire. The first Kravik went down with a bullet through its eye slit. The others roared and scattered, trying to find cover. But Taemin had spent 15 years in Earth's military. He had fought in the colony wars. He knew how to turn a cave into a killing zone. He moved position after each shot, never staying in one place. The Kraviks fired back with energy weapons that scorched the rocks, but they couldn't pin him down. He was too fast, too unpredictable. One by one, they fell. The last Kravik realized it was alone. It tried to run. Taemin shot it in the back. Silence fell over the cavern. Taemin checked each body to make sure they were dead, then took their weapons and communication devices. He ran back to find Daewon. "It's done," he said. "But they'll be missed. More will come." Elder Nyx stared at him. "You killed 6 Kravik warriors alone? That should be impossible. 1 Kravik can defeat 20 of my people." "I'm not your people," Taemin said. "I'm human. We're good at killing." The Velens looked at each other, their crystals pulsing with colors that the translator read as fear and awe. They had called for help and gotten predators from a death world. They weren't sure if that was better or worse. Daewon studied the Kravik communication device. Hana managed to connect it to their translator. Kravik voices were coming through, asking for status reports. Soon they would realize the patrol was dead. Then they would come in force. "Elder Nyx, we need to get your people off this planet," Daewon said. "Our ship can't carry everyone, but help is coming from Earth. Can you hold out for a few more days?" "We have held out for 6. We can hold longer, but the Kraviks will send more patrols, larger ones. Then we'll kill larger patrols, Taman said, checking his ammunition. That's what humans do best. Elder Nix looked at these strange creatures from a death world who had answered a call meant for someone else. Why do you fight for us? What do you gain? Day One met her swirling eyes. We gain nothing. We do it because it's right. The concept seemed to break something in Elder Nix. Water leaked from her eyes too. Your species cries for strangers and kills for them too. You are the most terrifying and most beautiful creatures I have ever seen. Outside, Kravik ships began descending from orbit. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of the Korean Stellar Navy dreadnought, Dokdo's Fury, and read the message from Captain Daewon for the third time. The message was simple and desperate. Coordinates, species names, genocide in progress, immediate help needed. Attached were images that made his blood boil. Crystalline beings in cages, children being torn from parents, mass graves. He had served in the military for 35 years. He had seen pirates, terrorists, and corporate wars. But this was different. This was extinction. This was evil. Communications, send a priority alert to Earth Command, he ordered. Full mobilization. Everything we have, within hours, Earth responded. Not just the Korean fleet. Ships from every nation launched. Chinese carriers, American destroyers, European frigates, African cruisers, South American support vessels. The entire planet united in rage. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself, but when someone else threatened the innocent, all those old rivalries meant nothing. The fleet gathered at the moon base. 147 warships, 20,000 soldiers. It was the largest military operation since the colony wars. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, other species at the moon base watched in fear. A Centauri trader sent an urgent message to its homeworld. The Deathworlders are mobilizing. Stay away from Sector 7. A Drellin merchant abandoned its shipment and fled. I saw humans loading weapons. Their faces looked like they were going hunting. I will not be here when they return. The galaxy knew about Earth. It was in all the databases. A Class 12 death world where everything tried to kill you, and somehow intelligent life not only survived but thrived. Most species avoided humans. They were too aggressive, too violent, too unpredictable. They evolved from pack-hunting predators. They still had those instincts. Now those instincts were focused on the Kravik Empire. The fleet jumped to light speed. It would take 3 days to reach Vela Prime. During those 3 days, Admiral Kyung-soo prepared his forces. He studied everything they knew about Kraviks. They were strong, heavily armored, and had conquered dozens of systems. But they had never fought humans. They rely on their exoskeleton for protection, Commander Bora said during the briefing. She was in charge of the Special Forces, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion with more combat experience than anyone on the ship. Energy weapons don't penetrate well, but kinetic rounds do. Bullets work. Bullets are considered primitive by most species, an officer noted. Bora smiled coldly. Good, let them think we're primitive. Then we'll show them what primitive can do. Back on Vela Prime, Daewon and his crew had been fighting for 3 days straight. The Kraviks sent patrol after patrol into the caverns. Each time, Taemin and the others drove them back. The Velans watched in amazement as 3 humans held off an entire occupation force. Taemin taught some of the younger Velans how to set traps. They were pacifists by nature, but they learned quickly when their families' lives were at stake. They used the crystal rocks to create tripwires and cave-ins. The Kraviks started taking heavy losses. They're getting frustrated, Hana said, monitoring their communications. They're calling in their heavy assault units. How heavy? Daewon asked. Armor. Dropships. Maybe orbital bombardment. Jiwoo's voice crackled over the radio from the ship. Captain, I'm picking up massive energy signatures entering the system. It's a fleet. A big one. Daewon felt his heart race. Kravik reinforcements? No, human signatures. Captain, Earth sent the cavalry. The Dokdo's Fury dropped out of light speed at the edge of the Vela Prime system with 146 other warships. War Master Thule, commander of the Kravik occupation force, saw them on his sensors and laughed. A human fleet? I have heard stories of these creatures. They are small, weak, from a backward world. We will crush them. He ordered his 30 warships to intercept. Admiral Kyung-soo watched the Kravik fleet move toward them in a standard battle formation. It was textbook. It was predictable. It was perfect. All ships execute pattern Chaos 7, he ordered. The human fleet broke apart in every direction. Instead of meeting the Kraviks head-on, they scattered like a school of fish, then came at them from 12 different angles. The Kraviks tried to adapt, but their formation fell apart. They weren't used to prey that attacked. Human ships were smaller and faster. They darted between the massive Kravik warships, targeting engines and weapons systems. They used asteroids for cover, pulling Kravik ships into ambushes. They launched drone swarms that the Kravik targeting systems couldn't track because they moved in random patterns. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 19 Kravik warships were destroyed or crippled. The rest retreated to the planet's surface. The human fleet lost 6 ships and 800 crew members. Admiral Kyung-soo ordered a moment of silence for the fallen, then began the ground assault. Commander Bo-ra led the first drop. 2,000 Special Forces soldiers in powered armor fell from orbit like meteors. They landed in the cities where Kraviks held Velen prisoners. The fighting was close and brutal. Kravik warriors were bigger and stronger than humans. Their exoskeletons could shrug off most energy weapons, but humans had fought bigger and stronger enemies before. On Earth, they had hunted mammoths and bears. In space, they had fought in the harsh environments of colony worlds. They knew how to kill things larger than themselves. The powered armor equalized the strength difference. The kinetic rifles punched through Kravik armor, and the tactics were something the Kraviks had never seen. Humans fought in coordinated teams, covering each other, moving like they shared one mind. They used smoke, grenades, and urban terrain to their advantage. They were patient and vicious. One squad, led by a sergeant named Mina, cornered a Kravik heavy unit in a building. The Kraviks had energy cannons and thought they were safe. Mina's squad used shaped charges to collapse the building on top of them. When the Kraviks tried to dig out, the humans were waiting. In another district, a unit led by Captain Junho rescued a Velen prison camp. The Kraviks fought hard to hold it. Junho's team used a strategy from Earth's ancient history. They pretended to retreat, drew the Kraviks into an open square, then hit them from 3 sides at once. It was a tactic that had worked in human wars for thousands of years. It worked here too. The Velens who were rescued couldn't believe what they were seeing. These humans fought with coordination that seemed impossible. They took wounds that should have stopped them and kept fighting. They mourned their fallen but didn't break. They were everything the Velens were not. Hard, aggressive, relentless, but they were also gentle. After each battle, human medics treated Velen survivors with care. Soldiers shared their food and water. Engineers set up shelter and power. The Velens realized these violent creatures were also compassionate. It was a contradiction that hurt to think about. Daewon and his crew were rescued from the caverns by Commander Bo-ra herself. She walked up to him in full armor, helmet under her arm, and saluted. "Captain Daewon, Commander Bo-ra, Korean Special Forces. Good to meet you. You held out well." Daewon laughed tiredly. He hadn't slept in 3 days. "We just tried not to die." "You're the real heroes." "No," Elder Nick said, approaching them. "You are all heroes. You answered a call meant for someone else. You fought for people you did not know. Your species is feared across the galaxy, but we will remember you as saviors." War Master Thule watched from his command ship, hiding on the far side of the planet. He had lost most of his fleet, most of his ground forces, and his reputation. The humans were unstoppable. They fought like demons, coordinated like machines, and never stopped coming. He recorded a message to the Kravik Empire. "Do not engage the humans. They are not prey. They are apex predators. I am retreating. Anyone who stays will die." Then he ran, his pride shattered, leaving thousands of Kravik soldiers behind to surrender or die. He broadcast the message across all Kravik channels as a warning. Within days, every Kravik commander in the galaxy knew, avoid the humans. They have claimed the Velens. Admiral Kyung-soo established a defense perimeter around Vela Prime. Human ships patrolled the system. Engineers helped rebuild the cities. Medics treated the survivors. And slowly, the Velens began to believe they were safe. On the bridge of the Dokdo's Fury, Admiral Kyung-soo received a transmission from Earth Command. The Galactic Council wanted to speak with humanity about their aggressive actions. He smiled grimly. "Send a message back. Tell them we'll talk. But we're not leaving Vela Prime, not now, not ever. If they have a problem with that, they're welcome to come here and discuss it." The message was clear. Humanity had drawn a line. The Velens were under their protection. Anyone who crossed that line would learn what it meant to fight a species from a death world. And across the galaxy, species that had ignored the Velen distress call felt a chill. The humans had answered, and they had shown what happened when you threatened the innocent while they were watching. The Galactic Council met on the neutral station Harmony 9, a massive structure floating in empty space between 12 different systems. The council consisted of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy, the wise Threxians, the wealthy Centauri, the intellectual Drellans, and 7 others. They had maintained peace for 3 centuries through diplomacy and careful balance of power. Now they faced something they had never dealt with before: humans who refused to follow their rules. Ambassador. Sun-Hee walked into the council chamber wearing a simple gray suit. She was 50 years old, with silver streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had been a diplomat for 20 years, negotiating trade deals and colony rights. But today was different. Today she was defending her species' right to protect the innocent. The council sat in a semicircle, looking down at her from elevated platforms. It was designed to intimidate. Sun-Hee didn't intimidate easily. The Threxian chairman spoke first. His species looked like tall, thin humanoids with blue skin and kind faces. They were known as peacekeepers and mediators. Ambassador Sun-Hee, humanity has committed an act of war against the Kravik Empire without council approval. This violates the Treaty of Harmonious Space. Explain your actions. Sun-Hee met his eyes. With respect, Chairman, we committed an act of rescue. The Velen sent a distress signal. We answered. Where were you? The chamber went silent. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. A Centauri representative, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish with tentacles, spoke in a musical voice. The Velen situation was known to us. We were preparing a diplomatic solution. The Velens didn't have time for diplomacy, Sun-Hee replied. They were being exterminated. Millions were already dead. How many more would have died while you prepared? That is not the point, a Drellin council member said. His species had multiple eyes and spoke with a clicking sound. You invaded sovereign Kravik territory. You destroyed their military vessels. You killed their soldiers. This is aggression. Sun-Hee felt her patience thinning. They were committing genocide. We stopped them. If that's aggression, then yes, we're guilty. And we do it again. The chairman held up a hand for calm. Ambassador, you must understand. The galaxy has rules. Without those rules, we have chaos. Your species is new to the galactic community. You must learn to work within our systems. Your systems failed the Velens. Sun-Hee said quietly. Your systems let them die while you debated. So we're creating a new system, one that actually protects people. You cannot simply declare a new system, the Centauri said. Who gave you this authority? The Velens did, when they asked for help and we answered. Sun-Hee pulled up a holographic display showing Velen survivors. These people are alive because of us. Would you prefer they were dead and your precious rules intact? Before anyone could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts flooded every channel. Sun-Hee's personal communicator lit up with urgent messages. She read them and felt her blood turn to ice. What's happening? The chairman demanded. Sun-Hee looked up, her face pale. The Kravik Empire just attacked New Busan, one of our colonies. They deployed a biological weapon. Thousands are dead. Tens of thousands are infected. The council chamber erupted in chaos. This was unprecedented. The Kraviks had struck at Earth itself. War was no longer theoretical. It was here. Sun-Hee turned to leave. This meeting is over. My people are dying. Ambassador, wait, the chairman called. We will condemn this attack. We will sanction the Kraviks. She stopped and looked back. Save your condemnations. We'll handle this ourselves. Then she was gone, running to the docking bay where her ship waited. On New Busan, a colony world of 2 million people, chaos reigned. The Kravik weapon was a virus designed to attack human aggression centers. It turned people into mindless attackers, filled with rage they couldn't control. Families turned on each other. Friends became enemies. The colony was tearing itself apart. Jiwoo arrived with a team of scientists from Earth. The ship landed in a quarantine zone while infected people threw themselves against the barriers. She worked for 72 hours straight, barely sleeping, analyzing the virus. It was brilliant and terrible. It exploited the very aggression that made humans such good fighters. But it had a weakness. The virus was designed for baseline human biology. It didn't account for the variations that came from living on different colony worlds. New Busan had slightly different atmospheric pressure. The colonists' blood chemistry had adapted over generations. Jiwoo used that difference to create a cure. Within a week, the infected were treated. The colony was saved. But the damage was done. 3,000 people were dead. Families destroyed. The psychological scars would last forever. Earth's response was swift and absolute. The United Earth government issued a statement that was broadcast across the galaxy. The use of biological weapons against civilian populations is an act of total war. Earth will respond with total strategic response. Most species didn't understand the term total strategic response. It sounded like typical political talk. But humanity's allies, species that had studied Earth's history, understood. It meant no mercy, no half measures, complete destruction of the enemy. Admiral Kyung-soo received his orders while still at Vela Prime. He read them twice to make sure he understood. Then he gathered his senior officers. "We're going to hit them," he said simply. "Not just their military, their government, their leadership, their ability to wage war. We're going to end the Kravik Empire." Commander Bora studied the operational plans. "This is a decapitation strike. We'll be targeting their homeworld. Yes, Kravik Prime. It has orbital defenses and a fleet presence. This won't be easy. When is it ever easy?" Bora smiled grimly. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow. We'll coordinate with the main fleet from Earth, but there's one more mission first." He pulled up an image of War Master Thule. "Intelligence has located him. He's hiding in the outer reaches, protected by what's left of his forces. Captain Daewon has volunteered to lead a capture team. He wants Thule alive." "Why?" an officer asked. "Because Thule knows everything. Troop movements, supply lines, classified locations. And because he ordered the attack on New Busan. Daewon wants him to answer for that." 3 days later, Daewon and a team of volunteers jumped into the system where Thule was hiding. The former cargo captain now commanded a frigate called Righteous Fury. It was a small ship, but fast and well-armed. His original crew was still with him. Hana on navigation, Taemin leading the boarding team, Jiwoo managing systems. They found Thule's flagship hiding in an asteroid field, protected by 6 escort vessels. It should have been an impossible fight. But Daewon had learned something during his time protecting the Velans. Humans were good at impossible things. "Hana, plot a course through the asteroids." "Get us closer, that's insane." "The field is too dense, I know. That's why they won't expect it." The Righteous Fury dove into the asteroid field at full speed, weaving between rocks the size of mountains. The Kravik escorts tried to follow, but couldn't match the maneuvers. 2 of them collided with asteroids and exploded. The others broke off pursuit. Taemin led the boarding team onto Thule's flagship. The fighting was brutal. Kravik soldiers were tough and desperate, but the humans were angrier. They fought their way through the ship, deck by deck, until they reached the bridge. War Master Thule stood waiting for them, armed with a massive energy weapon. He was huge, nearly 9 feet tall, his exoskeleton scarred from 100 battles. He looked at Taemin and his team with contempt. "Small humans. Weak humans. You think you can defeat me?" Taemin didn't answer with words. He dodged Thule's first shot, closed the distance, and put 3 bullets into the joints of Thule's armor. The War Master collapsed, his legs useless. The other soldiers secured him before he could trigger a suicide device. Daewon walked onto the bridge and looked down at the defeated Kravik commander. "You're going to stand trial. You're going to tell the galaxy what you did, and then you're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell thinking about all the people you killed." Thule laughed bitterly. "You think capturing me matters? The Empire is vast. It will crush you." The trial was held on neutral ground, broadcast across the galaxy. War Master Thule, stripped of his rank and his pride, testified for 3 days. He detailed the Kravik Empire's crimes across centuries: slave trading, genocide, forced labor, biological experiments. He named names and showed evidence. The Galactic Council could no longer ignore it. They voted to sanction the Kravik Empire. Trade was cut off, diplomatic ties severed. Dozens of species that had been secretly buying Kravik slaves or benefiting from their conquests were exposed and shamed. But humanity wasn't satisfied with sanctions. Admiral Kyung-soo led a combined fleet of human and allied ships to Kravik Prime. The battle lasted 2 days. Human forces used weapons the Kraviks had never seen. Relativistic kinetic missiles that struck with the force of nuclear weapons, drone swarms that overwhelmed defensive systems, and tactical coordination that seemed almost psychic. The Kravik Imperial Palace was destroyed. The military command centers were eliminated. The government collapsed. Within months, the Kravik Empire fractured into dozens of smaller states, too busy fighting each other to threaten anyone else. The attack came without warning on a Tuesday morning. New Busan had barely recovered from the first biological attack when the second one hit. This time it was worse. The virus didn't just attack aggression centers. It rewrote neural pathways, turning rational people into something else. Something that felt no pain, no fear, only an endless need to destroy. Jiwoo was in her lab when the alert started. She pulled up the medical data and felt sick. The infection rate was geometric. One person infected 10. Those 10 infected 100. Within hours, half the colony would be turned into living weapons. And the worst part was that the victims remained aware. They knew what they were doing but couldn't stop themselves. She worked for 96 hours straight, testing and failing, testing and failing. Her team of scientists from Earth and Vela Prime worked alongside her. Young Velan researchers who had learned from human teachers proved invaluable. Their crystalline biology gave them unique perspectives on neural chemistry. Finally, they found it. A cure that used Velan biocrystals to neutralize the virus. It worked. The infected were saved. But 15,000 people died before the cure was distributed. 15,000 people who turned on their families, their friends, their children. The colony's governor sent a message to Earth that was just 5 words long. Make them pay for this. Earth's parliament met in emergency session. The vote was unanimous. Every nation, every colony, every human settlement in space agreed. This was beyond war. This was extinction-level threat. The Vrix Syndicate, the criminal organization that had created and deployed the bioweapon, had to be completely destroyed. The United Earth government issued a declaration that historians would later call the No Mercy Protocol. It was simple and terrifying. Any organization, government or entity that deploys biological weapons against human civilians will face total strategic annihilation. There will be no negotiation, no surrender, no mercy. Admiral Kyung-soo received new orders. They were sealed and could only be opened by admirals and above. When he read them, he understood why. The orders authorized the use of weapons that humanity had sworn never to use again. Weapons from the darkest days of Earth's history. Weapons designed not to win battles but to end civilizations. He gathered his senior staff in a secure room. Commander Bora was there, along with captains from 30 different ships. He showed them the orders. "These are planet-killer weapons," Bora said quietly. "We swore we'd never use them after the colony wars." "That was before someone turned our people into weapons against themselves," Admiral Kyung-soo replied. "The government has decided. The Vrix Syndicate ends completely. What about civilians? The Vrix operate from multiple worlds. There are innocent people there. Intelligence has located their primary facilities. We'll warn civilians to evacuate. We'll give them 1 week. After that, anyone remaining is considered hostile." Commander Bora nodded slowly. "Then we're really doing this. We're going to show the galaxy what total war means. Yes. And when we're done, no one will ever use biological weapons against humans again, because they'll know what happens." The warning was broadcast across the galaxy. The Vrix Syndicate leadership laughed at it. They had been operating for centuries, protected by their wealth and connections. They controlled governments, bribed officials, and maintained private armies. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. The human fleet arrived at Vrix Prime with 300 warships. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. But they didn't attack immediately. For 7 days they waited while civilian transports fled the planet. Millions evacuated. Some chose to stay, either out of loyalty to the Vrix or because they didn't believe humanity would really do it. On the 8th day, Admiral Kyung-soo gave the order. The Dokdo's Fury fired the first relativistic kinetic missile. It was a simple weapon, really. Just a dense metal rod accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When it hit Vrix Prime's surface, it released energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon. No radiation, no fallout, just pure kinetic devastation. 30 more missiles followed. They struck Vrix military installations, research facilities, government centers, and the underground bunkers where the leadership tried to hide. The planet's crust cracked. Cities vaporized. The atmosphere caught fire. Within an hour, Vrix Prime was uninhabitable. Within a day, it would be a dead rock floating in space. But the fleet didn't stop there. Intelligence had identified 12 other Vrix facilities across the galaxy. The fleet split into groups and hit them all simultaneously. Some were defended by private armies and mercenary fleets. It didn't matter. The human forces were beyond negotiation, beyond mercy. They destroyed every Vrix installation they could find. The Vrix leadership that survived tried to flee to neutral space. That's when Daewon and his team showed what persistence predators could do. They hunted the Vrix leaders across the galaxy. It took months. One by one they found them. Some tried to buy their way out. They offered fortunes, technology, information. Daewon refused all of it. Some tried to fight. Taemin killed them. Some tried to hide among civilian populations. Hana tracked them down. Jiwoo made sure none of their ships could escape. The last Vrix leader was captured on a remote trading station. His name was Vex, and he had personally ordered the attack on New Busan. Daewon found him in a luxury suite, surrounded by guards. The guards didn't fight long. When Daewon walked into the room, Vex was alone and terrified. "Please," Vex begged. "I can give you anything. Money, technology, information about my competitors." Daewon looked at him with cold eyes. "You killed 15,000 people. You turned them into weapons against their families. You made children kill their parents. You made parents kill their children. And you thought you'd get away with it because you were rich and connected. It was just business, just profit. We didn't think—" "That's the problem," Daewon interrupted. "You didn't think. You didn't think we'd come for you. You didn't think we'd find you. You didn't think we'd burn your entire organization to ash. You were wrong about everything." Vex was taken back to Earth to stand trial. He faced judges from 30 different human colonies. Each one read a list of names. People who died because of his bioweapon. It took 4 days just to read all the names. When they were done, Vex was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole or early release. He would spend the rest of his life in a cell, thinking about what he had done. The galaxy watched all of this with growing fear. Humanity had unleashed total war. They had destroyed entire facilities, hunted leaders across light years, and refused to stop until every threat was eliminated. Other species that had been planning their own attacks on human colonies quietly canceled those plans. But something else happened too. Species that had been victims of the Vrix Syndicate, species that had lost people to bioweapons and slavery, began reaching out to Earth. They wanted to join the Sentinel Pact. They wanted protection. The pact grew. Within 2 years, it included 70 species. Earth built defense stations around vulnerable worlds. Human forces trained local militaries. Scientists shared technology. And everywhere humans went, they brought a message. The strong should protect the weak, not exploit them. Admiral Kyung-soo was promoted to Fleet Admiral and put in charge of Sentinel Pact operations. Commander Bora became the head of Special Forces training, teaching other species how to defend themselves. Ambassador Sun Hee led diplomatic efforts, building alliances and negotiating treaties. And Daewon? He retired from active service and returned to his old cargo ship, the Mugunghwa's Promise. It had been turned into a museum, a memorial to the day humans answered a distress signal meant for someone else. But Daewon convinced them to let him fly it one more time. He took it back to Vela Prime. The planet had been rebuilt, its crystal cities shining again. But this time they were protected by defense stations and patrol ships. Human and Velan engineers working together had created a hybrid shield system. Velan biocrystal technology combined with human military engineering. It was beautiful and powerful. Elder Nyx was waiting for him at the spaceport. She was old now, her crystals dimmed with age, but her eyes still swirled with color when she saw him. "Captain Daewon," she said through the translator, "you came back." "I wanted to see how you were doing," he said. They walked through the rebuilt city. Young Velans played in the streets, their crystals bright and shining. They didn't remember the invasion. They were too young, but they would learn about it. They would learn about the day humans came to save them. "We have changed," Elder Nyx said. "We are still peaceful, but we are no longer defenseless. Your people taught us that there is no shame in being able to defend yourself." "I'm glad," Daewon said. "We also learned something else from you," she continued. "We learned that the strong have a duty to protect the weak. We cannot fight like you do, but we can use our technology to help. We have joined the Sentinel Pact Medical Corps. Velan doctors now serve on human ships, treating the wounded." Daewon felt pride swell in his chest. "Elder Nyx, that's wonderful. It is our way of saying thank you. You answered our call when no one else would. You fought for us. You bled for us. Some of your people died for us. We can never repay that debt, but we can honor it by helping others.